Let's go see the bell swinging. This is Bree, United Methodist Church, bell ringing. The bell is in that tower. I can see it in person. You probably can't because my camera is a literal potato. The bell rings an approximate B note and weighs around 805 pounds. Look, they're ringing higher. Look, if you look right there, you can see the top of the bell a little bit. Look, now, little black thing. That's the bell. So now you just you hear the clapper bouncing. I'll explain why at the end of the ringing. Assuming my phone don't run out of room. They're done. Almost. They're ringing it down now. I think.
Ready to go, son.
Yep. They're done almost. Yep. Yep. Just took on my tradition of tolling the bell at the end of it. Tolling basically means only swinging the bell a little bit so it only hits one side of it. Okay. I'm going to explain why it has a double ring on one side sometimes and a triple ring on the other side sometimes. And also why that bell has itself a worst case scenario. Have no idea if you can see me or not, probably not, oh well. Basically, in case you don't know how the bell works, because there's different ways it can ring, this particular one is a swinging bell. So it swings side to side. And there's a clapper that hangs on the inside of the bell. And with gravity, that just hits either side of the bell. And that's okay. Except, especially with hand-rung rings like that bell is rung by hand, it's not rung by a motor. The bell's about 112 years old. At least. And basically it rings on a daily basis. Well, it doesn't always. It's been ringing on pretty much a daily basis for a year and a month now, basically. Well, no, actually, a year and 4 months, almost. Pretty much every day. And it rings for about 10 minutes. And basically, whenever it's ringing with a rope, like with someone ringing it by hand, like you would imagine someone ringing a bell. Basically, the bell is moving a little slower than it would with a motor. Moving a little slower than others than the same size bell would be if it was rung by a motor. And basically it lets the clapper have time to rest against the side of the bell. Now, the bells do wear out over time. Not as much as you would think you would if you banged it millions of times over the years. I'm not going to do the math, but it's basically been ringing for about 212 days approximately, and it rings about 1,000 times every day. So you can do the math. Now, the bells are made of bronze, which is a very durable metal. It's actually almost as durable as it sounds good. But still, banging on it in the same place that much does cause a little bit of damage. It don't cause that much damage. It mainly just polishes it. It basically, sort of like impact polishing, kind of. It kind of does that so it doesn't corrode in that spot. And people think it's chipping out the metal, which it does a little bit. There is a slight little divot in there, but it's not a big deal, really. But basically, especially on the hand-rung bells, you should have a clapper spring, and that keeps it from hitting into the bell too hard, and it also pushes the clapper back towards the other side of the bell so it rings evenly. Now, that bell rings somewhat high. It doesn't ring full circle, but it doesn't ring normally either. It don't ring like that. It rings about that much, kind of. About 100 degrees or so. Probably about 120 degrees instead of 90, but oh well. and basically it lets it rest on the bell. So basically, even if you can't hear it, it's bouncing on there, and that causes excess wear on the bell. So while it only rings audibly about 1,000 times, given that it rings twice on one side and 3 times on the other, it really rings about 5,000 times a day. And you can imagine that it takes its toll, excuse the pun, on the bell, basically. The bell usually ends up being fine, but if it does end up cracking, it's usually because the force of the clapper is not regulated. I know it sounds counterproductive, which it is to an extent, but it's in a good way. It also keeps the bells from being incredibly loud. Which that bell is relatively loud, but it's about the average sound of a church bell, about 100 decibels on ground level. But you definitely, carillon bells, you'll probably be alright. Tolling bells, you might. If it's depending on if your how sensitive your ears are, you might want ear protection, just to keep simply for comfort. Swinging bells, you need ear protection. They ring about 180 decibels right there. It's about 60 decibels louder than a tornado siren at 100 feet. So basically loud. So if you're in the bell tower, up next to the bell, probably should have ear protection in. Basically, it bounces on it. So basically it bounces onto it. On each side, kind of double bounces. I'll demonstrate on my bell how it does. Mine also has a weird random behavior that the actual church bells don't, because the clappers are heavier. Mine will actually basically swing kind of back and forth and like that, kind of. I don't know what its problem is. I'm having health problems right now, so I'm gonna be able to stay out not very long that much. So yeah, I'm gonna show you with my bell. Now I've got the clapper relatively under control. Now that's the inside of my bell. Now really it should be about like that much, but as you can see, it scoots back and forth. You don't want that. Now if you'll watch my bell in there, watch that. See a little double clang on it? The clapper spring has to have so much force to go in deep enough for it to ring. And